Hey, this is Ed Rick from Ed Rick Drums, and it's been my pleasure to be a part of the iWalter podcast.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
All right. Hey, folks, this is Walter from iWalter, and I have a special guest tonight. It's been a while since I've had anybody. A friend of a friend, it's Ed Rick. He's actually a music teacher, if I remember correctly. He's a drummer. He teaches drums, and actually he performs jazz. He's a drummer for a jazz band and some other stuff. But I'm not really sure what to say. But I want to introduce him. Once again, this is Ed Rick. Ed, maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a background history of yourself and how you got into music and things like that.
Okay, well, drums were not my first instrument. My first instrument was accordion, which everyone usually gets a big chuckle out of. And I started accordion lessons at 5 and did that for a while.
Going to be the next Lawrence Welk. He was going to be the next Lawrence Welk.
That's Matt saying that.
Yeah, well, Matt had to expect something that lame from him, but
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. Didn't really like accordion that much. Always wanted to play drums. I think my first live performance on accordion was I was in 3rd grade, however old you are then, and I didn't get till drums till I'm going to guess around 12 or 13.
Okay.
Because I remember writing a paper in English class where she asked us to write a paper about what we wanted to do when we grew up, and I was like, I was clueless. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. The funny thing was, at least I sat there probably half the class trying to think of what I might want to do, and I wrote that I wanted to be a DJ, but it was like a radio DJ.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I was thinking. So at least I got music in there. But the drum thing came after that because by 9th grade, when I joined my first band, there was no question about what I wanted to do.
Okay.
That was a given at that point.
I know I was trying to be a DJ, I guess, once or twice on college radio, but it didn't turn out too well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very hard. I think what you're doing is actually more interesting, though. You're actually, well, you're teaching again, but you're also, found your niche, I guess, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, I perform a lot, and it's not just jazz. I mean, I grew up playing rock, and I got into fusion and jazz, and I mean, there's 2 approaches. You can either just play one thing, whatever it is you want to do, and just do that, but you got to be, incredibly good at it, and just stick to it. Or you want to be well-versed and be able to play anything. And I chose the latter approach. Basically, I'll play anything. I don't care what it is.
Okay. I mean, I know you. I've seen you play drums before.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you play it out. So what else do you play, I guess, then? I see a keyboard here, but other instruments then?
Well, basically, at this point, it's drums.
Drums.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to play something else, it would be keyboard, but and I fool around with it, but it's not like I'm going to be playing any gigs doing that.
Yeah. I mean, well, drummer is very important, obviously.
Very important.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's kind of lost without it.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think of like drummers. I think of the guy from Def Leppard and stuff like that.
Okay, I love Def Leppard.
Yeah. Well, was he an influence? Actually, I can't remember his name, but the drummer.
Rick Allen.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But you know what's weird? This is going off topic.
No, that's
fine.
But
there was a poster of Rick Allen he was played Ludwig drums,
Okay.
and it was, I guess, talking about how hot he was or how hot the band was. And so there's like flames in the poster, and the flames cover his left arm.
Oh.
They obscure his left arm. I'm like, how is that for weird foreshadowing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's almost prophetic.
It was a prognostication.
Whatever that means, but
We got to keep him out of this
Oh.
unless we absolutely need him.
that is kind of strange, though. Yeah, because he did lose his
Yeah.
left arm.
Yep.
He's an excellent drummer,
Yeah.
even so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's impressive to me that he's able to get past that.
yeah.
I mean, losing the left arm, and he trained himself to trigger things he would do with his left arm with his left foot. And,
Oh, okay.
And most people, I mean, that's a real tall task.
Well, he did say in an interview, look, I was never a double bass drum player anyway, so he felt it was almost not that unusual to play. I think he played shark pedals at the time and Simmons drum pads, and the shark pedals were, the left foot would trigger. I remember at the time he had a regular snare drum sound, and then he had this what was called like an effect snare drum, which was like this super loud cannon-like electronic snare drum sound. But, it was terrible what happened, and they tried to reattach the arm, and the doctor was heartbroken that it didn't work. But one good thing that came out of it was that people in England were no longer afraid of him after he lost the arm.
Okay.
Because they said, don't worry about him, he's armless. Thank you.
I knew something really bad was coming.
Well, Ed, I mean, obviously that was one of your influences, though, is drummers. Rick Allen. Thank you, Matt. I mean, was that your only? Because I heard you were listening to different types of music when we came in.
Right. Well, I was on Pandora doing a specific.
Could we
station.
talk about how you're really well versed in, what would you call it? Sort of like almost like Tommy James and the Shondells, that era of like 50s
Yeah.
and 60s music,
Right.
and go ahead with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, after I joined, I when I got to drums, I guess 12 or 13 or something, I just practiced incessantly, and I joined my first band a year or two later. And unfortunately, right after I turned 15, I was hit by a car riding my bicycle home from Philadelphia, and it kind of racked me up for a while. But what happened was, the reason I'm well versed in oldies was I started to listen to the oldie station WOGL, and I learned all that stuff because I was pretty much sitting around doing not a whole lot of anything. I had to recover. It took a long time. But also, it was interesting because it got me into the California Beach Boy, sunshine, perfect weather girls, because my life was nowhere near that at that point, and that was a big escape for me. So they became like a band that I went to see all the time when I was able to. And actually, that was a funny story. My dad drove me to a concert at Allentown Fair, and the Beach Boys were playing. And my friend and I were sitting in the grandstands with my father, and he said, well, let's take a walk. So we go to take a walk, and I see Mike Love, their front guy, out like listening to the Kinks for the opener.
Okay.
So they're listening to the Kinks, and I go over, I said, there's Mike Love. I said, let's go talk with him. So we go over to talk with Mike, and I think he was surprised that I knew their music so well. I mean, I could have played that show that night. You could have just thrown me in without a rehearsal, and I could have nailed the show because I knew it like the back of my hand. I'd seen him so many times.
Now, what year would this have been with the Kinks opening for the Beach Boys?
I have no idea. Long time ago. I was in high school.
What years were you in high school?
Let me see. I was born in 1900, so it would have been about 1914, something like that, 15.
Do you not want to give away your age? Because what year were you born? You were born in
1900.
No, you were born in 1960 what?
1900.
All right.
That's pretty old, then.
I am 116. Yes, I'm very well preserved.
Yes, you
I
look
take
great.
good care of myself. I work out all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the story as it goes on, like all of a sudden Mike turns around to me and he says, "Do you want to do me a favor?" And I started laughing because I don't know why, but I knew what was coming. And I said, sure, what's that? And he said, go ask those girls there if they want to meet one of the Beach Boys. And I was like, okay, here's Mike Love asking me to approach the girls. And my bass player friend said, well, they're already talking to some guys. Don't you think we should wait? And he said, yeah, okay. So I started talking music again with him. And all of a sudden he goes, come on. He goes, let's go. So we start chasing these girls down. And with like 2-3 minutes, we're surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of girls. I'm like, this is so cool. This is like the best, right?
Yeah.
And then Mike tried to get us backstage, but the security wouldn't let us backstage. So the last thing he said to me was, it was interesting, they were supposed to be playing at Wildwood Convention Center the next weekend. And he turned to me and he said, you're going to be in Wildwood next week, right? And I said, yes. He said, great. He said, I'll see you there. And that concert was canceled, and I don't know. I don't know why it was canceled. But it was canceled, and then the next year, their drummer, Dennis Wilson, had injured his hand, and they had to get another drummer. And being like I was, I don't know, maybe 16 or something at the time, you don't think, well, there's got to be a way to contact him and try and get together and keep in contact, because it would have been pretty cool to have gone on tour with the Beach Boys when I was in high school.
That would have, I mean, no offense, don't take this the wrong way, but that would have altered the course of your life if
Absolutely.
that had happened.
Totally.
Now, at this point, whenever year you saw them in high school, I mean, obviously Brian Wilson was just out of the picture, right?
He was not there.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't there, but he was also lying in a bed somewhere or something.
I don't know what he was doing.
Okay. Now, would the keyboard player have been that Billy Hinchy guy? Do you know who he is?
Well, he would have been there somewhere, probably.
Okay. All right. Now, did the girls at the Allentown Fair, did they look like California girls, or did they
Absolutely.
Look like... Did they really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they were from Pennsylvania, probably.
Yeah. Mike knew what he was doing.
Okay. All right. Anyway, but sorry, back to the show.
No, so you met up with
Mike Love.
Mike Love, thank you.
Right.
From the Beach Boys.
And I was on.
I
was on stage with a bunch of them after the show, just hanging out.
How was that then to hang out with?
Oh, that was fine, except my bass player is known for coming up with really dumb lines to say to famous people, and Al Jardine was sitting at the piano playing some new song he was writing, and my friend's name is Mark. He said, "Hey Al, you want to jam?" Al said, "Not now."
So, no, I mean, so obviously Beach Boys is where it kind of started, I guess, before that, with you.
Well, that's how part of the oldies thing I got into, why I know all those
Well, while
old
he
songs.
was on the mend and convalescing from getting hit by a car, what kind of car was it he got hit by, do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay. He was laying around, and he was almost a captive audience to a lot of the oldies stuff.
Well, that was my choice to listen to that. It was an escape.
Well, yeah.
Especially the Beach Boys.
I'm not saying you were paralyzed and you really wanted to turn the station, but you couldn't move. I'm just saying that you weren't doing anything else, so you were listening to a lot of music.
Yes,
All
I
right.
did listen a lot.
All right, back to the show. Why don't we find out about the different styles of music that Ed plays besides rock and jazz? Because he's also pretty well-versed in Latin. So ask that.
Oh, I didn't know that. So you're, what Matt just mentioned, well-versed in Latin?
Well, I don't know if I would go that far, but, I mean,
Well, who would be the premier Latin drummer these days?
These days? I don't know. Right now, I don't know. If going back a few years, like guys like El Negro were really great. Horatio Hernandez, because he'll do all the percussion parts and the drum set simultaneously, which is pretty absurd.
What about like Alex Acuna, the guys from the 80s that were a modern drummer that were Latin guys?
They're, excellent players. But, I mean, Horatio is, again, kind of like incorporating all the parts, the percussion and the set, into one seamless thing. So he's pretty up there.
Okay, well, yeah. What about, was Alex in Acuna, was he in Weather Report, or am I thinking of somebody else?
He may have been. When I saw Weather Report, Peter Erskine was playing drums.
Well, playing drums, but I thought they also had like a conga guy or something. Who was
Not when
Alex.
I saw him.
All right. What about, what is Tito Puente exactly? Is he...
Timbali player, band leader.
Okay, timbali player.
Yes.
Is it kind of weird to be a band leader and a timbali player?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, a friend of mine was initially on when a teacher mentor initially played drums, and he moved on to timbales and fronting the band out front. Okay. And I actually thought, I mean, as great as he was behind the drum kit, he was even better as a timbale player.
Yeah, I'm interested in all that Latin percussion stuff, but I'm really ignorant about it. I don't know like the right approaches, and I don't think I know anything past like a 3-2 clave pattern or a 2-3 clave. That's a whole lifestyle.
Well, it's like when I was a gig I played with Chuck Anderson, and Michael Sambella was there from who wrote Maniac in the movie Flashdance.
I thought you said he disappeared off the map. This a long time ago that the gig was?
It was, I don't know, 6 years ago maybe.
Okay.
But his thing is he spent a lot of time in Brazil.
Yeah.
And then there was talk about us playing some gigs with him, like 6 dates actually, 6 gigs. And then he was concerned that we might not know all the Brazilian rhythms. So I started working on the Brazilian rhythms, but it's so region specific. It's like dialects of a language. I would need to know where in the country
and Brazil
he was
is a big country,
spending
right?
his time, or where he was hanging out, to know the proper way to play those Brazilian beats that he was interested in.
Yeah,
because you need to know where he was coming from.
I was about to say, well, how many Brazilian rhythms are there? But then if you're saying it's even region specific, like dialects of a language, then a lot, obviously.
Tons. Yeah, it's scary.
Wow. Yeah, you could almost devote your whole life just to that kind of
Absolutely.
Brazilian drums.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I've lately been a big fan of the Joe Beam stuff, the bossa nova stuff, and even tried to write a song, and it came out okay. I mean, I don't have lyrics; I just have the melody to it, and that was a lesson or two with Chuck. I think initially I started with the melody with chord tones that were too basic, roots and fifths and stuff like that. And if you look at the Joe Beam stuff, he's there's more colorful chord tones that are happening in the melody, upper partials, 9s, 11s, and 13s and stuff like that. But anyway, okay. So, Walter, I just wanted to ask Ed, now you say you joined your first band. It would have been a matter of like a year after starting playing drums, or 2 years or something like that?
A year or two at tops, yeah.
Okay, and didn't we talk about this before? You never had drum lessons. You just listened to it and figured out, like, oh, that's the bass drum, and that's on beat 1, so I do that. And then the snare drum's on beat 2, and I can hear this is the hi-hat, and this is doing that. So you just imitated it by listening.
Right.
Okay.
I would pick up everything. Yeah, I would just listen to the things, pick up what was going on, and play along with records all the time.
Yeah, so you were,
self-taught.
Self-taught.
Until I got to college.
Right. I mean, self-taught to the extent that you can be. I always say the only people that can be self-taught with an instrument is if you dropped them off on a desert island when they were little and they never heard any other kind of music. I mean, they could be self-taught on an instrument. That's total self-taught. And I told you once before, the way I learned to play drums is I bought this book in the library, which was like color-coded, and they would just, like a ruler on top of the page, they'd have a song, and they would have like, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like a grid, and then there would be like a colored dot underneath, directly underneath whatever beat or upbeat you were supposed to be playing the bass drum on. And then I figured out, that's how it works. The bass drum is on 1 usually, and then the snare drum is on 2, and then another bass drum on 3, and then 4. And then I would listen to songs, and then, I can hear that happening. So, it was a huge revelation to just be able to figure out, it's going boom, ba, boom, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. And then I would try to imitate that myself, and I bought my first drum kit before I had any kind of lessons. But yeah, it was a similar thing, kind of, although I had the book to learn from. So, what would you say? What were the albums you were listening to figure out how to play drums? Was it that diverse a choice of albums, or was it more specific to a kind of music?
I listened to basically anything and everything. A friend of mine, his next-door neighbor, was older, and he had like this big record collection, and he used to let me borrow a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I remember I listened to one guy when I met him a few years back, and Danny Serafin from Chicago was a big influence. In fact, I told him, I initially said, you were one of my biggest influences.
Yeah.
And I said, actually, you're probably my biggest influence. I think he probably got a kick out of that.
Okay.
But, and I remember borrowing Stage Fright by the band and listening to Lee Von Helm, and just his completely different approach to the drums and sound, and everything was totally different.
Well, how is Lee Von Helm? He just died a couple years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is his approach different?
It's hard to define. It's just totally different, because if you listen to him early when they were like strictly a blues band, it was much different than he wound up playing with what we're all used to hearing. It's just kind of a very laid back approach, and his fills and his ideas were totally different. Pretty sparse, a lot of space.
Yeah. Not playing all the time.
And interesting, and his drums were tuned differently also. Just
how?
Maybe looser and not quite as studio perfect as a lot of other things might have been.
Not a doctored drum sound.
Not so much. No.
Okay. Yeah, he did he play other instruments besides drums? Because he seemed
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was really. I mean, he had his own studio, and he was like really just almost like a workaholic about just coming out with new music or working on music, trying to work on new songs. And I thought I got the impression he was more than just a drummer. You know what I mean? He was.
Well, he's also lead vocalist. So
yeah, was he a lead vocalist?
Yeah. Yeah, he sang a lot of their hits. And
well,
stuff.
he was
on
Take a Load Off Fanny? He or whatever that song is called.
Ton of songs.
Yeah, that song's not called Take a Load Off. What's it really called?
The Weight?
Yeah, that's what it was. Sorry. I didn't know. So he was more lead vocalist than like Robbie Robertson or whatever the guy's name was?
Well, he sang a lot.
Okay.
I mean, they all sang, but
all
he
right.
sang a lot.
So anyway, so you were listening to the band and Chicago.
Well, I mean, I was just mentioning things that I got from my best friend's neighbor. And, Chicago was huge, because I remember the first time I heard Make Me Smile.
Okay.
I heard it on the radio, and it gets to the little Danny's drum fill at the end, and I was like, what was that? It was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
It's perfect drum sound, perfect fill. Just kind of really got me into the Chicago end of things, which was kind of leading more into the jazz and fusion area back then. Pretty aggressive and progressive at the time.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit younger than you are, but I guess I traveled along the same path. I would have been about the same age, and for me it really was Def Leppard right when, or shortly thereafter, he lost his arm, and they just put out Hysteria, which is the first album after, which I guess was 87, something like that. I would have been 13, 14, and a friend of mine got me into it, and that's when I first seemed to like heavy metal or pop metal or hard rock or whatever you want to call it. And I was interested in how can the guy play drums with one arm, and I bought Hit Parader magazine or whatever it was called when he was in, and I read all about him, and he was in Modern Drummer later that year. I remember when a friend and I first figured out how to take the SEPTA train down to Center City and walk around down there, and we were in the gallery at the time, and Modern Drummer was on sale at one of the bookstores, and Rick Allen was on the front, so I bought that and all. But I think what was I going to say? I think so. Yeah. So I started listening. Well, yeah. Because again, I had a friend who was getting into hard rock music, and we used to try to like reproduce Def Leppard tracks. Like we would figure out how to play some of the guitar parts on like this bad keyboard that he had, and we would have sleepovers like every Friday night or whatever. One of the things we do is we would try, or Saturday night, whenever it was, we're trying to work on music, and he had like this little really bad like 4-pad electronic drum kit, and like that's what I wanted to play, but I couldn't even play the most of the beats in, like, we were trying to do the song Hysteria. Most of the drum beat is boom, bat, boom, boom, bat, boom, bat. And I was just trying to play that with my hands on the drum pads, and I could barely do that or stay in time. It was really hard at first because I'd never done it before. And my other two friends were trying to play the parts, the different guitar parts and bass parts on the keyboard. So that's kind of what got me interested in that. And then from there, it was like other English hard rock bands and metal bands, like Iron Maiden, I think was the next band that I got into. But So yeah, it's listening to music, and like I said before, because when I was younger, I was only interested in like rap music. I would listen to like Curtis Blow, Houdini, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys. There was a show on Power 99 on Sunday from like 1 to 5 with some female DJ who called herself Lady B. So I was interested in that kind of music, Sugar Hill Gang and stuff too. And at the time, I thought, I used to like make fun of my friend up the street who was really into hard rock music. I used to sing "I Hate Rock and Roll" instead of "I Love Rock and Roll" by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and he didn't like to hear that. But at the time, it was kind of noisy and abrasive to me. But then, like I say, when I got to be at the same age that you, when you started playing drums, that's when I was interested in that kind of music and listening to the instruments and how do they do that. And at the time, it was like you were just like full of all this wonderment. Like, God, how do they actually do that? Now, looking back on it now, most of the stuff that a lot of these people played was not particularly difficult or complicated. But when you're first hearing it for the first time, it just sounds like, and you too. You were like, I have to figure out how they do that. And I want to do that too, and I have to figure out how. And I'm still like that, to this day. But enough about me, if that's at all possible.
Apparently not.
Let's get back to Ed Rick. Now, are we allowed to mention what Ed Rick's real name is?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. So we won't say what it really is.
It's Ed Rick.
Right. But, well, you and I both know. All right. Anyway, let's talk more about, you know what? Let me
Stutter?
Let me give the mic back to Walt and then see if he has anything to add. All right, and then I'll come back in later if need be.
Well, it's not that I may have anything to add. I want to hear more from Ed. I've interviewed Matt quite a few times. I've actually, I do appreciate that though, Matt. Sorry, I just got too close to the mic. But yeah, I just wanted to hear a little bit about your history, what you would like to talk about.
Right.
Obviously now you started on drums and
Yes.
kind of got influenced in that direction. And the Beach Boys was one group. Def Leppard, we know.
Right.
A little bit.
I mean, there's tons. I mean, obviously the Beatles. I listened to Beatles a lot. Then a turning point for me was a band called the L.A. Express. Tom Scott and the L.A. Express.
Okay.
And Tom is a sax player and my favorite sax player to this day. And his drummer's name was John Guerin, and he just totally blew me away. And this is almost concurrently with when Steve Gadd first came into prominence. And Tom Scott left the L.A. Express and did an album called The New York Connection. And it had the instead of the L.A. guys playing on it, it had the New York cats, and Steve Gadd was playing on that. And as much as I love Steve Gadd, and he's obviously a bigger influence than John Guerin, but John Guerin's style to me is still so unique, and so I've heard a 1,000 Steve Gadd clones. Okay. I've never heard anybody that could do what John Guerin did.
Okay, well then can you put a finger on what is unique about John Guerin's style?
It's after all this listening to him and studying him, and I went on eBay and because he'd written a book, and I thought that would give me some insight.
Yeah.
And I bought the book, and it came from England, and I was so excited. And you look through this book, and it's back when he was playing. He was a big studio cat also. He was playing with the Byrds at the time, and it really didn't help me at all. It gave me no insight into his style whatsoever.
Well, what kind of stuff did he say in the book? Was it just real dry exercises, or what was it?
It was, just a bunch of patterns that he was playing, but it didn't seem to really hold any resemblance to what he did with the LA Express.
Well, then it's a feel thing. It
is a feel thing to a point, and it's also just his ideas were totally different than anyone else's. He like Steve Gadd was more rudimental, and John is more feel to me. As weird as that's going to sound, all the Steve Gadd guys are going to come after me. I love Steve Gadd, but it's just a totally different feel. Kind of open and looser and really interesting and innovative. He also, this is funny, I didn't find this out till years and years later. I was listening to an old episode I was watching of Hawaii Five-0 on some rerun, and there's some really cool drum fill in the middle of it somewhere, and I was like, who is that? Hal Blaine, who was the L.A. Hollywood studio drummer for decades. He was like the number one call. And I found out that it was John Guerin, and he played every episode of Hawaii Five-0 that was ever done.
Wait, what do you mean? He in the background music, not in the theme.
He played the soundtrack music and the theme song for every year of Hawaii Five-0, the original series.
Okay, so if he's more of a feel guy, or well, it's just probably.
He's got a lot of technique too. He does some really interesting stuff.
But I mean, when you talk about like this guy's really original, a lot of times, I mean, like, did he arrive at the originality through deliberate effort, or is it just he's instinctively original and he just can't help it?
I would think he was both instinctively original and also probably worked like heck. Not necessarily to make himself sound different than anyone else, but just to make him as good as he could possibly be.
Is he still alive?
No, he's passed away.
Okay, because I was going to say, I would try, in these days, I would try to see if I could email somebody like that and just say, how did you, like, trying to think about how did you get to where you are? And I wonder if some of the time, these people can't even necessarily tell you. They just kind of did.
Probably not.
Right. I don't mean because they're dead. I mean because they're like, well, I don't know. I just did whatever I thought was the right thing to do, and it was an instinct more than a plan.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, I found a thing on YouTube of the Brady Bunch, and it's, I don't know, something about the drummer. And I remember reading the comments section, and people were like, oh, that's Hal Blaine, blah, 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 and I listened to it, and I was like, no, they're wrong. That is not Hal Blaine. That's John Guerin. And for sure, it's him. And the funny thing is, he does a lick in this song that I heard him replicate on one of the LA Express albums. So there's no question who it was. People guess wrong.
Okay, now, back in the... You were telling me something once. This is going back to, like, I think the years 2009 or 10 at Music and Arts Center. But you were talking about, what the hell was it? Something like in the 80s. You were talking to some other drummer who, I can't remember who it was, but you were saying something like, well, that should have been me, or why aren't I doing that, or something like that. It was something like, you're saying back in the 80s, I guess you just had a lot more gigs or more bands you were playing, or you were playing with bigger bands or something like that. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to be insulting, but what was it? What were you doing in the 80s, to try to push things along?
Not much at all.
Really?
No.
Well, when was it that I could have sworn there was some? Well, how about this then? When did you get hooked up with Chuck Anderson?
That's one I can actually trace the lineage. I was playing with the Johnston brothers, and we played maybe 250 plus dates a year. And Kurt Johnston, who later went on to recording, actually he was recording with Bon Jovi back then, but he recommended me to Chuck, and that's how I got hooked up with Chuck. And that was probably, I'm going to guess, mid to late
90s?
90s, yeah, somewhere in there.
So Kurt Johnston,
right, recommended me to Chuck Anderson.
And we don't know how Kurt Johnston knew Chuck Anderson.
He'd recorded with him. I guess he'd done sessions with Chuck.
Okay.
And then it was funny because that led me to another band that I was in for a while with Peter Scott Rubin. Chuck recommended me to Peter Scott Rubin.
Yeah, who's Peter Scott Rubin again?
He was like, at the time, like the premier, one of the premier wedding private event bands in Philadelphia. The first one in town that actually would carry both his band and a DJ
Okay.
for the
interesting.
gigs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then maybe when you were playing 250 plus dates a year with the Johnston brothers, maybe that's what you were talking about when you were like talking about how busy the performing schedule was.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went from. I wasn't playing a whole bunch. I quit twice for maybe 2 years at a pop, and I was running the drum department at Medley Music, which was the biggest music store in the tri-state area at the time. And
what year was this? What years were you at Medley?
Late 80s.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't know Chuck Anderson from those days, because wasn't he?
No, I never met Chuck until considerably later.
Okay. I guess he was out of Medley by that time.
Oh, he would have been long gone.
Yeah. Would he have left there when he got a job at the Latin Casino?
Very possible.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know when Chuck was there, but it was way before I even heard of it.
Okay.
I never even heard of Medley Music. I used to go to 8th Street and Music City and Cintioli's.
Where is Cintioli's? I was there.
Northeast Philly.
Northeast Philly.
He used to have a store on Rising Sun Avenue way back when I was a little kid.
What was the guy's name? Benny something or other?
Benny.
Okay. Is he still alive?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was there once. I don't know how I got there, but that was in the days, too. I think in the old days where it wasn't legal to sell those real books with the jazz standards in there.
Right.
So you would go
he
in
would
there.
Sell them.
Yeah, well, you'd go in there and say, I'm looking for a real book. And then Benny would go, I don't know what you're talking about. Those are legal. There's something in the basement that's $35. I don't know what it is, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what he used. That's what I heard from Kenny Kirby. You don't know Kenny Kirby.
I don't think so.
Okay. I think he's moved back to Georgia or Alabama or something, but he was in Philly for a while. I took some keyboard lessons from him. So you weren't really doing much in the 80s?
I don't remember what I was doing in the 80s. Let me think. I think I was playing weddings. A lot of weddings. I was in a band called Airborne. Okay. Really, really excellent band, actually.
Not an original band, though, was it?
No.
Okay.
But it was like we were more jazz and funk oriented than most bands were at that time, playing that circuit. And we had a tremendous lead singer.
Female or male?
Male.
Okay. He was
tremendous singer, yeah. And our sax player went on to play with Odine Pope's saxophone choir, and on from there. All the guys, a bunch of the guys went on to play in the EBE bands and Eddie Bruce Entertainment, which is really big. I worked at the music store for a while, and then a guy called looking for a drummer to play cruise ships. And then he came in to talk to me the next day, and I got that gig, and I left Medley Music and started playing on cruise ships.
And this would have been late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
How many cruises did you do in total?
I have no idea. I did it off and on for three years. So
dozens, maybe.
Oh, way more than that.
Okay. Well, but how long are you on the cruise for? You on it for like 2 weeks?
Months at a time.
But not on the same cruise?
Yes.
But not the same trip is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Wait, when people take a cruise, don't they take like a week or two cruise?
Right.
The cruise doesn't last for months.
It does for me.
Well, yeah, for you.
It does for the band.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So you're okay.
We're just doing the same thing over and over and over every week. We're in the same ports, but we're there for time.
Okay, yeah. I meant okay. Now, my first thought with that, you know what my first thought is with the cruise thing? No. Is the Babe potential, because I'm thinking
it's
cruise,
very high.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're in the band.
Yes.
Booze, cruise, and booze. See, they rhyme. You got the cruise,
yeah,
and then you got the booze,
yeah. And
then if I said something vulgar, I could rhyme something to do with women with both of those things.
There is seriously something wrong with you.
That's a given. But no, in all seriousness, could you? I know a gentleman doesn't kiss and tell. But is there any way you could allude to, like, what
it's a smorgasbord.
That's good. How do you, but you know what, though? But here's the thing, though. It might be a smorgasbord, but you can't, it's not like they're going to pursue you. You still have to put some effort in, right?
No?
Because that would be my dream. I didn't
have to put effort in.
Really? You would just stand there. and women would fall on you from a great height.
Sometimes.
All right.
Sometimes they would be screaming at me before I even got on the ship. It was ridiculous.
Really?
Yes. How's
that possible? I mean, your reputation preceded you.
No, they just saw me on the dock before I got on the ship, and they'd be calling down to me. It was absurdly easy if you wanted to go that route.
Well, don't we want to go that route?
Here's the line.
The only guy that wouldn't want to go that route is Nathan Lane.
Here's the line that they would always hit me with.
Okay.
They'd say, "We know you're not supposed to have passengers in your cabin, but what would happen if you did?" So it's basically saying, okay.
Okay.
Let's go.
Was that a real rule? Like, you can't have passengers in your cabin if you're
technically,
on
I was not supposed to. No.
Okay. All right.
Now, I was an employee of the cruise line.
Right. But
so I'm not supposed to have passengers in my cabin. No.
Yeah. Well, could you go into their cabin, figuratively?
You're not supposed to. No.
Oh. So both ways, it's equally frowned upon.
Yes.
Okay. And how do these women look? What ages were they? They weren't like 47 and they looked like somebody's mom.
Hardly.
Okay. That sounds good. I wish I thought to do that. Or I wish I had better chops.
We got to be pretty well versed.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, speaking of the cruises, did your student Seth, did he ever, because he was trying to get on one of those, right? Did he ever do it?
No.
Any reason why? Or
he wants to play on Broadway.
Really?
He wants to be a pit drummer on Broadway. Yes, but right now he's in a very heavy original band, and
heavy kind of music. Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Does you still teach him? Do you still teach him, or
he lives in Boston now?
Oh, that's right. Well, he went to school up there.
Yes.
So he moved up
there.
He
moved to Boston.
Is it because
yes. the
people he was in a band with are also
yes.
up there?
Yeah,
okay.
and his girlfriend lives there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So after the cruise ships ended, then I played with Bobby Mercer, the Bobby Mercer Road Show.
Talk about Bobby Mercer.
Bobby Mercer is a very talented guy. He's been around forever. It's a real, like, when you use the term show band, this is the epitome of a show band. I mean, we had bits. We would have skits that we would do on stage.
Like what?
Like, I always thought this was completely lame, but we used to do this thing called dueling banjo. Because he would announce to the audience that we were going to do dueling banjos, and then one of the other band members would go over to him and say, Bobby, we only have one banjo. And he'd say, okay. He'd say, we're going to do dueling banjo. And he'd have two chairs at opposite ends of the stage, and he'd sit down in one chair, and he'd play the one part, and he'd run across, and I'd be doing the footsteps on the drums as he'd run across the stage, and he'd do the other part, and he'd be running back and forth playing each part. So that would be an example of a bit.
Right. So he played the banjo.
Yes, he did.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, he played guitar, was his main instrument. He played banjo. He played clarinet. We used to do that when we did our sing medley, and he would do clarinet. He's also he's a really good writer. He writes really good charts. I mean, they're hard to comprehend because his writing is really sloppy, but he knows music very well.
Okay, so it's hard to read, but what makes it a good chart in your opinion?
He knew how to arrange things and just write parts for the instruments that would make the whole a very good, complete piece.
Now, is he like Duke Ellington, where he's writing particularly for certain players? Like, I know this guy should play this part.
No, he didn't do that. He wrote for, band members changed frequently, so he couldn't do that.
Okay. Well, it almost seemed to me, and this is just one way, it's not like it's the way, but to my mind, like a good chart would be if first of all, if it sounds really good and really uses the ensemble, but also if it's kind of like playable and not like being able to sound good while being playable, like not overreaching or playing something that's too hard and doesn't come off well. You know what I mean? Kind of.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the first thing about it, but It seems like that would be a good arranger or a good chart writer or something like that.
Yeah, he wrote good charts, in my opinion.
Okay.
He had a great band. He had great band members. Bobby, if you're out there, sorry for this, but he wouldn't let the band play to their potential. He basically wanted us to sound like a big loaf of white bread.
What does a big loaf of white bread sound like?
As opposed to sound like we had any soul and groove.
Oh, okay. So it was almost like a kind of a...
very homogenized, very, very in a tiny little box that we couldn't go out of.
So when you say white, you mean white, as in...
Yeah, I mean literally white.
White, okay.
We couldn't sound like we had much of a group. One time we were playing at the Hershey Convention Center, and it was a big, big event. I mean, thousands of people. It was big. And he went back into the bowels of the building to rehearse some horn players for some part. And he came out, and the band was just really grooving. We were just like having a ball and just really getting into it. And he was standing behind me, and all of a sudden I noticed he was there, and he was hot. He was mad. He goes, "You didn't know I was here, did you?" And I was like, "Oh shoot, I got caught doing the worst possible thing, playing and really grooving." I was like chastised for that.
Wow, how long did you stay with this? Because I mean, listen, I can't pretend to not have been the control freak when I had bands and whatnot, but at the same time, that sounds like, is that not a lot of fun? So how long were you with Bobby Mercer?
I guess maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Not a real long time.
So
I quit in the middle of winter, in the middle of a gig at Boca Raton, so I'd had my fill.
Okay. So
I came back to Pennsylvania in the middle of winter.
All right.
That's how much I needed to get out.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I guess the money was keeping you there for a while.
For a while.
Yeah. Okay.
The money and one of the dancers in the show.
Okay. What year would
and
this...
the weather.
Right. Well, yeah. I've never been to Florida, but I want to go there. What the closest I got, I think, was New Orleans. But anyway, what year would this have been?
It was like right after the cruise ships.
Okay,
so I'm guessing early 90s, and then I went from that to the Johnston Brothers.
Okay. Where were you? How about this? Here's a weird question. Where were you when people really got in, and how aware of it were you, and what were your thoughts on it when, because for me it was significant, but maybe not, probably not for you, when people started really getting interested in music that was coming out of like the Pacific Northwest, like the Seattle sound and all that grunge stuff. I mean, that probably didn't have hardly any impact on you, did it?
Not really, no. Okay. I mean, to me, it's just, I mean, it's like the old Billy Joel song, still rock and roll to me. I mean, I don't break into genres and stuff. If it sounds good to me, it sounds good to me. I don't care who's doing it or what they call it. Labels mean nothing. That's something you have to teach your students also. If you're into one style and one style only, if I try to teach you something outside that style, no matter what you think, it's going to benefit you in whatever style you're trying to play. They can all be interwoven, and everything crosses over, and any style of music will help you with whatever other style you're going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just, for me, and I'm not even saying that was my favorite kind of music, but for me it was just a perfect storm because I had just started college, and what they used to call that kind of music before grunge was just college rock. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was like late, like fall of 91, and the Nirvana video was on MTV and still hot, and I was just starting to finally be interested in music that maybe just wasn't metal all the time.
Okay.
And it had a huge impact on me, and it just was kind of freeing because, again, things were in different, you'd have songs in major keys. Everything didn't have to be in a minor key, and you could have, there's also people who really couldn't play the guitar that well, but yet the song was really good, and
right.
They had a catchy melody and all that
right.
kind of thing. And also it was, it was a kind of a little bit of, I guess, a droney, depressing sound that would have appealed to somebody who was that age and in college. So, but again, I think, I mean, there's something about being older where you're more jaded and you don't, even if, like if Nirvana came out now, let's say they didn't come out in 91, but they came out now, just the fact that I'm 20 years older now, it wouldn't have the same impact on me, I don't think, as it does when you're more impressionable, more easily impressed by sound and music. And I mean, don't you feel that way? Like, I was talking to Walter about this one time. Like, when I go to a concert now, I mean, it's all well and good, but it's not the same as when I would go see Iron Maiden at the Spectrum or Metallica at the Spectrum for the first time, where you're like, oh my God, they're right there. They're breathing the same air that I am.
Well, nothing's the same as the first time.
Yeah. Or the first, when you're a teenager, you're just, you're not
the first
as
time, even when you're not a teenager. The first time you experience something is going to have an impact if it's impressive to you at all. I don't think age is that important. I mean, it plays a part. But if you saw something right now that completely took your breath away, it's still going to have a big impact. Your age doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, but let's say tomorrow night I go see a band that's a great band, and I like that kind of music, and it's the first time I've ever seen them. I just don't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think that it would have the same impact as, again, when I'm 17 and seeing Iron Maiden for the first time or Def Leppard for the first time or any of those bands. It's just,
well, I don't know. I think I feel more open to it than you do, apparently. But again, when I see something that I really, really like, it'll have an influence. It'll have a big impact. I mean, the show we saw recently, where you'd never heard of the band before I took you there.
I liked it, but I wasn't blown away.
Yes, yeah, I was.
Okay. Well, that's the first time that's the first time either of us seen him.
Well,
right?
Exactly. It's the first time I've seen him. Okay. And, I would have liked to have seen him 20 years earlier, but this is the first time I got to see him.
I think you would have been more blown away 20 years earlier.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I will have to agree to disagree on that one. I think we should do this. Let's compromise. When you and I agree. No, when you and I disagree, we'll say that I'm right. And then when you and I agree, we'll say that you're right.
No. We'll just say that I'm right because you're not going to be.
All right. I don't know. You know what it is, too? It's like, another thing is, now that you kind of know about how music is played on these different instruments, when I go see bands do it, I don't know. I mean, I hate to be a stick in the mud, but I'm not as much in wonderment as I was before I could tell how somebody was doing something. Like, when I went to see Bob Mould, I can just look at his left hand on the guitar. Now I know how to play his songs, but I didn't know that when I was 20. It was still more of a mystery how these guys are playing their instruments. But now it's less of a mystery, which means I learned a lot, but it's less exciting and less full of wonder.
Okay.
Even when I started going to the Troc, where the shows were smaller than the Spectrum, and you were pretty close to the band, and you'd see Weezer,
right,
or Lush, or Stereolab, or any of these.
Weezer's going to be in town on the 2nd, by the way.
Yeah, I saw them when they were like damn brand new, and I was extremely excited because, again, it was a different kind of music, and I was really close to the band, and these guys looked like regular nerds, but they were just awesome in concert the way they were playing. They only had that one record out that was produced by Rick Ocasek, and they were so great, and they were opening, I think, for Lush. They were so great that the Troc made sure to have them come back like on their own little tour,
right? Where
I think Stereolab and That Dog, featuring Anna Warnaker, who's like Lenny Warnaker's daughter, who's like a Warner Brothers record guy or something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm just saying that when I was younger, it just seemed to be, I hate to be a buzzkill, but it just seemed to be more fresh and exciting. And I wish, when you get older, you're still searching for those first times, and that where it's like it was before. But I don't know. For me, not for you, I guess, but for me, it's just it's not the same.
Well, when you're a kid, you don't have the responsibilities, and that's also why you want to practice a lot when you're a kid. When you have that kind of time, you got to take advantage of it, because sooner or later, you're not going to have that kind of time, and you've got all these other obligations and work and family and whatever, mortgages and this and that, I think all that stuff tends to mute, possibly in your case anyway, your response and your impact that you take away from these events.
Well, you're right about that, because I do know that when you're a kid, like, you're not at the Iron Maiden concert with thoughts invading your mind while you're watching the band, going, "Oh God, tomorrow I gotta get the axle on the car needs to be fixed. And I gotta take it into the thing."
Mm-hmm.
And oh, you know what, man, I overdrafted my bank account, and I got to pay a $12 late fee or something like that. So there is that too.
Right.
And also physically too. I remember when I was trying to stand for all this time during, what band was it, Garbage or something like that? I was like really tired after a while. Like my hip hurts, and all that from trying to stand there for hours and hours.
Yeah, it's tougher than it used to be.
It's tougher than it used to be. Walt, can I ask you, how much time? What minute mark are we at now? Are we at like almost 2 hours or what?
30 seconds. No, actually, guys, we're at about 54 and a half minutes.
That's
okay.
It? You haven't been doing this an hour yet?
Yeah, and that's and you're like
taking over the show.
9/10 of this.
I'm sorry. All right. Well, let me step out of it, and you guys can do some more stuff.
No, you've been a help. You've been a help, Matt.
Whatever you want to talk about, please.
Well, I'm not even sure. Matt did help me, I guess, to ask you some questions.
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I did want to hear more from you, but sorry, Ed, but
not a problem.
Yeah,
not a problem. I know Matt.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? Why don't you let me back in here, Ed? Because I think we've heard enough from you.
Hey, don't leave.
No, I know.
I'm just looking outside.
Matt is walking out of my drum studio.
Yes.
As we speak. I don't know why.
Speaking of which, you do have your own studio. I see you have your own, your T-shirt on your advertisement. So
yes.
If you want to, you can talk a little bit about that too. How did you get into, having establish your own business? And
well, I mean, I kind of followed a similar route to the other person in the room, known as Matt.
The guy who talks a lot.
Yeah. and
sorry, Matt.
It was like when I came off the road and I started playing locally, and I was playing with the Johnston brothers. Like I said, we were playing 5-6 times a week.
Yeah.
So, and people used to approach me a lot about teaching, and I was like, I have no clue what to do with this or how to approach beginners, because I didn't take a lesson until I got to college. And then my first teacher, it was Ken Miller he's still as far as I know, the timpanist with the Philly Pops Orchestra.
Okay.
And we went right into like the Jim Chapin book. It was the first drum book that I had. And just jumped right in, it was like feet first into the fire, it was like jumping right in and stuff. The problem was my playing ability was very, very high. My reading ability was very, very low. So it was a struggle to narrow the gap, and then, but I think that gave me a little bit of a head start on people in another way when I'm teaching, because I understand what it's like to be able to play and not have a clue what I'm doing. And then I also understand what it's like to take lessons and the advantages of that, so I can scope and span both those approaches. And basically, I think, when like I said, I came off the road, and people would ask me to start teaching, and a friend of mine called me and asked me to take his schedule over on Mondays at George's Music. And I said, all right, I'll do it. Because we didn't play on Mondays. Monday was the night that I actually had off, and I was like, I didn't know what to do with the night off at that point, because I was so busy all the other nights. Yeah. And I started teaching, and then it went from I had one day, and then the next thing I knew, I was teaching 3 days a week. Then I was teaching 5 days a week, and very quickly I was teaching every day of the week. And I was so busy. I used to go from teaching to playing, and I remember I'd stop at a Wendy's, and I would get a grilled chicken sandwich and a chili, and I would eat the grilled chicken sandwich as I was driving.
Wow.
And I would hope that the chili would stay warm through the first set, so it wasn't stone cold when I got to eat it on my first break. But it was that busy for years. I would go months on end without a day off.
Well, so you were teaching at George's. That's where you met Matt, obviously.
I was teaching at George's. I met Matt at Music and Arts. I started teaching there also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was...
Just out of interest, I don't know if you want to mention his name. Who was the drum teacher at George's who asked you to take over Mondays? Anybody of note?
Dave Espasto.
I guess not. Is he anybody?
He's a great drummer.
Great drummer.
Good friend of mine, yeah.
Okay. Still talk to him?
We haven't chatted in a while. I'm going to have to try and get in touch with him. It's been a while since we've chatted.
And he was in bands, cover bands, original bands?
He was doing, for a while, he was doing Tony and Tina's Wedding.
Oh, around
He
here.
played that.
Around here?
In
not
Philly.
In Philly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a thing that started in New York, but then they kind of franchised it out or something.
I
right?
guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember they used to advertise that on Howard Stern, I think. Back
Okay.
in like the early-ish 90s, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the guy from Cinderella.
Which one? Singer? What? Tom Kiefer.
No, but he...
Michael Kelly Smith? He wasn't in Cinderella very long.
No, but I mean, did you work at that? Is that the one place that you guys...
Yeah, we were all there.
Well, yeah, I met Michael at George's. He taught there.
It was George's then.
Well,
Okay.
that's where I met Michael and Billy Childs was teaching
bass
there
player.
also. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah,
that.
we were all there.
And Billy Childs, if I remember, what the heck was it? Because I never taught at George's, and I didn't start teaching until shortly after 9/11. I didn't get to a music store to teach until like summer of 2008, like August, something like that. But Billy Childs, I remember, I think I had a student who had him as a teacher before he got to me, and
Okay.
Billy Childs was something like, oh, you don't know how to read music, it's just a waste of time, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And at first I thought the guy was talking about Michael Kelly. He was like, yeah, the guy used to be in Cinderella or something like that.
Brittany Fox.
Or, yeah. But I don't think it was Michael Kelly Smith. He doesn't really read music, but he probably wouldn't say that. Like, oh, you don't know how to read music, it's a waste of time. But I think it was the bass player from...
I can't answer that. I have no idea about that end of
Okay.
things. But Billy is one of the coolest guys you'll ever know.
He's a
great
cool guy.
Very cool guy.
Can't read music, but a cool guy.
I didn't say can't read music. I have no idea on that end.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. I thought that was him. How was he with the ladies?
Really good.
Yeah? What was
Yes.
what was his style of picking up the ladies? And how does it differ from your style?
I have no clue what he does.
But it works.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what's your style of picking up the ladies? Are we talking?
I don't have one. There is no style.
There's no style?
You don't need style.
You don't need style?
No,
Could you
none
speak on that a
whatsoever.
little bit?
There's the only thing you need is confidence. That's it. Period.
Is there a way to fake confidence if you don't have it?
No.
You have to get it then.
You cannot fake it.
Okay, so
you
you have
just
to
have
get
it. No,
How do
you have to have it.
Right, you have to get it. You have to have it.
You just have to have
Oh,
it.
you're saying that you can't get it if you don't already have it.
Well, I don't know. That'd be tough.
So it's
Hopefully
just
you have it.
It has to be a sort of an inborn,
Well, I don't think it's
intrinsic.
somewhat. But I mean, you know what I mean? If you're confident in what you're doing, you're confident in what you're putting out there, you're confident within yourself.
Putting out there in what way? What are we talking about?
Like, say, as a musician, I'm confident behind a drum set.
Right.
I have no qualms about what I'm doing. I have no doubts. I know that I'm really, really good at what I'm doing. People pick up on that. That's why I get in a lot of bands.
Right.
You fill in with somebody, and then they ask you to join, you know? It's because, like, first off, I've been filling in with bands since right after I started playing. When I got in the first band, my guitarist teacher used to hire me for gigs.
Right.
I started playing with adults when I was, 14 years old. And I played with, older guys for probably the first half of my career.
So, wait a minute, then. Now, not everybody is a musician. So, are you saying that confidence with the fairer sex comes from, or success with the fairer sex comes from confidence in whatever you do for a living?
No. Confidence, whatever you do, period.
Oh, not just in every aspect.
Yeah, you can't be confident in one area and like separate it from other things. You have to be you have to be overall confident.
You mean when you
know
say
what I mean? It's like people, like I used to get a lot of girls would say that I thought that I had a big ego. And I said, no, I don't have a big ego. I said, I'm very confident. I don't have a huge ego. But you have to have a certain amount of ego or you would never set foot on stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know players that they'll never get out of the basement.
Right.
Because they don't have enough confidence or enough of an ego. I mean, you don't want to go overboard, but you've got to have some or you're lost. You'll never get out of the basement.
Right. You have to have at least enough
confidence.
confidence.
If I wasn't confident, this is an example. It was funny, but when my first audition for a band, and I knew I could play, I was really, really confident, and I was in junior high at the time, and ninth grade, and I went and I auditioned for this band, and all my friends and family were the only ones that had heard me. Nobody had ever heard me play drums outside of friends and family. And come a couple periods before the end of school was going to take place in the school, after school was done, I started getting really, really nervous. And I got to the audition, and I was just a wreck. I was so scared I could barely hold on to the sticks. And I completely flubbed the audition, and they wound up getting another drummer that was in 7th grade at the time.
Yeah.
So, and they kept asking me, they said, do you want to play another song? And I was like, no, I don't. I'm done.
What do you think got into your head?
I just, stage fright. I just was playing in front of people that I wasn't used to playing in front of people I didn't know at that point. It was a long time.
Well, you've never done it before.
Well, I did it on accordion when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But I don't remember being nervous about that. But yeah, I got really nervous, and then it was funny. I don't know how they did this. This was pre-cell phones, but I was at a spaghetti dinner at a firehouse with my family, and my best friend was there, and somehow they tracked me down there and called the firehouse.
Yeah.
And they said, we want you to come over and audition again.
Yeah.
And I was saying, nah, I'm not going to do it. My best friend, I said, oh, yeah, you're going. And I went to the audition, and I wasn't nervous. It was just that one-time thing. And I got the gig, and I've been playing ever since.
So, in a way, maybe you learned, look, it's not going to do you any good to be nervous, so just don't do it.
Well, I mean, I think a certain amount of nerves is good before you hit the stage, but you want it to be completely under control. You want it just a little bit to give you that edge, you know what I mean? Because you want to be on top of things when you hit the stage. I mean, you're giving a performance, and the energy has got to be there. So the little bit of nervousness will help that. But too much is obviously going to, you'll train wreck.
But when you say, well, you can't be confident only in one thing, it has to be in everything, I mean, isn't that kind of a tall order?
No. I mean, if you're confident in yourself,
yeah, but what if you're
then
doing
that
something
basically encompasses everything. I mean, obviously, like say, if I go out and try to play tennis with the tennis pro, I'm not going to be confident about that.
Well, exactly.
But that's completely out of your realm. That's something you don't expect to be good at. So who cares?
Okay,
that has no influence on my confidence.
All right. Well, I thought you were trying to say, no, everything you do, you have to be really confident while you're doing. I was trying to say, well, I'm not going to be confident going parasailing for the first time or something like that.
Why? You're not doing anything. Why wouldn't you be confident? You have almost no control over parasailing.
All right. Well, forget parasailing. But I'm talking about something you need skill for. That is, hard to do.
When was the last time you were parasailing?
I've never been I don't even really know what it is, actually.
I played on cruise ships. I've been parasailing numerous times.
All right. Well, I rode a jet ski for the first time
Woo!
This summer.
Woohoo!
Are you being acerbic with me? Look, I never rode a jet ski until this past summer, and at first I was scared to go past like 20 miles an hour on the thing.
Okay.
Now after like 20 minutes, I was doing 60.
Right.
But at first,
so you're going faster than your car will go.
My car will go. I was doing 80
in your little Honda Fit.
In the Honda Fit, I was doing 80 the other day.
Woo! That's like taking your life into your own hands, isn't it?
I guess so. Well, listen, I've driven faster than you ever have because I told you I was in a Chevy Impala coming back from South Dakota doing 112.
Right. Like I said, I owned a Corvette, and I never had it in triple digits. I knew it would go 170 plus.
Yeah, but you never did it, though.
No, obviously not. I don't need to.
You don't need to?
I don't need to. I know the car will do that, and why would I do that? Like I said, if I got caught speeding like that, the surcharge on my insurance would have been so high I would have had to sell the Corvette. What's the point? I'd rather drive it and keep my insurance at a decent rate.
Captain Sensible, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a big round of applause. Hey, you know what's a good, by the way, the Impala, if you have an Impala, you should get if you can, you should get a vanity plate. And you know what it should say?
No, I'm sure you're going to enlighten us.
Vlad. You get that?
Go ahead.
No, that's it, Vlad. If you have an Impala, you should have your vanity plate say Vlad.
Yes, you're terrible.
Vlad the Impala.
Give the
Is
microphone
is
back
this
to
thing
water,
on?
will you?
Take my wife, please.
Alrighty, Ed. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Here all week. Tried the meatloaf.
He said try to meatloaf. God, I wanted to step back a little bit. I think one thing that actually kind of on the conversation is a little over an hour now, so that's really good.
Okay.
You said you can't read sheet music very well or something. I think that's kind of a big influence for somebody who wants to play drums or an instrument
right.
that I mean, obviously you have a talent to pick up on an ear.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I always said there's three types of musicians. One is a person who has a really good ear, can't read a lick.
Yeah.
Two are the guys who can really read charts, but they can't hear things and they don't know what to do without it. And three, and this is what I just strive to hit with all my students, is a person who's got a really good ear and can read.
Oh,
then you're a step ahead of 90% of the others.
That's true. I mean, but if you have a difficult time reading the sheet music, it's not impossible to learn, I guess.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I couldn't read a lick when I got into college.
Wow.
And I was okay in college. I learned a lot from that. But I found that when I started teaching, because I'm writing all the time, my reading and writing skills are much higher now than they were when I was in college.
Wow.
Because, I mean, I'm doing it every day.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, if you write a lot, it makes it a lot easier to read.
Speaking about reading and writing, do you do any of your own material or whatever besides students and playing different bands? Do you actually, or do you make your own, I guess, music or whatever?
No, I mean, I've got tons and tons of things started. I've never actually completed a song.
Okay.
I have, I mean, there's things on albums I've done.
Oh.
That I'm happy with, that I'm proud of. Probably the most creative thing I have on record is from an album with Chuck Anderson, and it's called Diablo's Dream.
Oh.
And Chuck brought that here to my studio. We rehearse here, and it was a straight-ahead bebop song when we started. And in the first couple of rehearsals, I played it that way. And then I said, I had an idea for it, and I said to Chuck, fortunately, he's very open to this. I said, Chuck, I've got an idea for this where I'd like to do a halftime shuffle through part of the song. He said, go for it. And I came up with this part, and I worked it all out. And it's probably, again, the most creative thing I have on record. And it's, I think it was a pretty innovative part. A lot of the reviewers would comment on specifically Chuck playing over a hip-hop groove. So I was probably the first person to get a hip-hop groove on a straight-ahead jazz record.
Okay, I mean, okay. Is that something we could actually go out and find it? Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Absolutely, yes.
Diablo's Dream. Which album is that?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of the album because it went through a couple different names. Initially,
so that was
going to be called something else.
An original tune that was supposed to be a bebop tune. So
that's what it sounded like first off.
Okay.
It sounded like straight ahead bebop, and that's the way I approached it at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had this idea for doing sections as a halftime shuffle, leaning in the hip hop direction.
Yeah. Well, that happens a lot where the drummer suddenly plays something that the composer didn't expect, and it's like, wow, that's really awesome. You should do that. That's happened to me before. By the way, speaking of this, here's something I'm curious about. Remember that movie Whiplash, where the guy was always like, "Let me hear your double time swing," and it's supposed to be like really.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, the album is Free Fall.
Oh, Free
with
Fall.
Diablo's Dream. I believe it's the last track on Free Fall.
Now that wasn't the modal album. Didn't he do like an album of like all modal tunes?
Not with me.
Actually, wait a minute. That might be the one. Is there anything
modal? I don't think it's a totally modal album. No.
He did one that was all modal.
Okay.
I think. Now I know he did like relaxation music from the light. You probably didn't have anything to do with that.
I have nothing to do with any of that stuff.
And then
Free Fall is the first album. I've been playing with Chuck for close to 20 years. But
is it all original music?
Free Fall is the first
What are the
album we recorded together.
What are the tunes on there? Does it say?
No.
Well, here, type in. Yeah, there we go. Well, type in Free Fall into the thing. Chuck Anderson Free Fall. But, okay, I could be wrong about that. We'll find out in a second. But, what was I going to say? Oh, well, okay, like when you're playing like super fast bebop, I mean, we're talking like what, like 200 beats a minute or something like that?
No, we're over 300.
Over 300.
Yeah.
How do you, like, what do you do? Like, is there any, like, is it, tell me what the limbs are doing. Is it like a swing shuffle thing on the ride cymbal?
Swing.
Swing.
Basically. I mean, the
ding,
most
ding,
basic,
ding, ding, ding,
the
ding,
most
ding,
basic version, yes.
How do you do it that fast? Is it a rebound on the cymbal? Not really?
Yeah. There's obviously you got to take advantage of rebound.
Okay.
Yes.
You're not like playing every note.
I mean, you are, but I mean, you're not. You know, there's a thing called the Muller method.
Oh yeah.
Where you get more than one stroke, one note out of each downstroke.
Yeah.
Down ups, down tap ups, down tap tap up.
Okay.
You know, so
I thought the Muller method was that whipping your arms around thing.
It is.
Yeah, but you don't do that on the ride cymbal.
Well, I mean, it's very abbreviated motion.
Okay.
At that point, but yes, you are doing some of that.
Okay.
Or you can.
So the tunes on Free Fall are, yeah, they're all originals. None of those are.
Yeah.
Is there a description of the album down there, Walter? Can we page down a little bit more? Keep going. They don't say anything there. I don't know, man. That might be the one that's modal. You don't think so? I mean, it's key based, tonally based music.
It's not modal. I don't think the whole album. You got to be kidding me.
Maybe I must be confused.
I don't know where he's going with this.
I'm probably wrong.
I'm just the drummer.
You know what I mean
have no
by
idea
modal.
what Matt is talking about. I'm just the drummer on all the albums.
Well, look, modal is So What, right?
Yeah.
By Miles Davis, that kind of thing.
The guy you think you write like.
I didn't say I think I do. I said I might be interested in explore. I just want to find out. Look, there's not much of a chance that I'm going to do anything innovative like Stravinsky's Rite of Spring or Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. Probably not. You know, that's a safe bet. I'm a safe distance from genius. But if I can figure out what these guys are doing, maybe there's a chance that, and I'm not trying to be a straight-up emulator, but if I could put a lot of it into the mix and mix it together like gumbo.
Oh, boy.
Then
Are you sure you don't want just to do a stand-up bit? Well, for starters, stand up.
Okay, a priest, a nun, and a rabbi walk into a bar. The bartender says, "What is this, a joke?" Thank you.
Whew.
Is this on? No. A grasshopper walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey, we have a drink named after you." The grasshopper says, "You have a drink named Steve?"
There you go.
Thank you. I got that from Michael Kelly Smith, by the way.
There you go.
Well, look, I tell you what, we'll leave this. I could have sworn Chuck said he did some album where all the tunes were modal.
Well,
like this is
very possible.
Is mixed, and
it's very possible. I was probably not a part of it.
I don't know. It might be freefall.
I don't think so.
All right. You know the difference between modal music and key-based music?
That's why I'm saying it. I don't think so.
All right, then. All right. I'll ask him on Wednesday. All right, let's go back to what were you talking about before?
I have no idea.
All right, here, I'll give you this back, Walt.
All right, Ed. Sorry. I'm actually purchasing. Thank you again, Matt. Thank you, Matt. You've been a help. You've been a big help. I actually did purchase Diablo's Dream because that's your piece. Well,
No, it's
He just did a cool drum.
it's Chuck's piece. It's Chuck's tune. I just took it in a totally different direction.
okay. But I mean, if I purchase that, I will hear your
Oh yeah,
drums
absolutely.
in the background.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so that's good because I want to. Maybe I can incorporate that into the show.
Hmm.
Now, on that record, by the way, Free Fall, what kit did you play?
I was playing a kit I no longer own. It was a Thai Studio Maple set, and I sold it to one of my students a number of years ago. Great kit. But yeah, Diablo's Dream was the last tune we cut on that session, and that was the first take. One take.
Oh,
And I remember when it started, I was just going to stop it because I thought we should do it again. And I thought, well, we'll do it again. We'll take another take and no big deal. And we got done and Chuck said, that's it. I said, no, let's do it again. He said, no. I said, come on, I want to do it again. He's like, no, that's it. We're done.
He liked the performance that much?
Yes.
Okay, because you would think he
One
would.
take.
Wow, that's hard to
First
do.
take.
One take, first take. Now, what do you guys think Diablo's Dream is? Because Diablo, as we all know, well, let's see if Walter. Thank you. Very good. So, what would the devil's dream be? What would he dream of?
Matt.
Is that he?
I mean, I don't approach these songs as Hal Blaine would. And
Oh,
there's
does he actually try
and
to
there's
figure
no,
out the
there's
lyrics?
no, well, he would look at lyrics. There are no lyrics. So I didn't think about that way. I just think about it sonically.
Sonically.
And what I'm hearing and how do I react and respond to it.
All right, why don't we, do you want me to put the mic up to your speaker on the phone and listen to the song?
I'm going to try that.
Okay.
All right, let's play it. Let's listen to a little.
Probably sound a lot better if you ran it through that.
Can we do that? How do we do
Yeah.
that? Why don't you know what we'll do? Let's take a little break or a little pause here, and then we'll listen to Ed Rick's drum part in Diablo's Dream.
All right, everyone. This is Walter from iWalter once again. You had just heard
Diablo's Dream.
Diablo's Dream.
Chuck Anderson Trio.
Chuck
from the album Freefall.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, Matt was going to say something. That was actually very good. Thank you for that. Letting us listen to that. I already forgot what I was going to ask you. We were mentioning off while that was playing. Gentleman, that was really funny.
Right. Billy Childs.
Billy Childs. Thank you so much. Boy, I'm a mess. I know, Matt. So, would you like to say something about him, or?
Well, yeah, Billy's. He was in Britney Fox, which was a glam hair band that could actually play, which was kind of unusual. And I'm friends with a lot of guys, Michael Kelly Smith and Johnny D. And so I knew basically the whole rhythm section. And Billy came back from California to play with Get the Lead Out. And I do believe now he has left that, and he is playing with Britney Fox again with Johnny on drums, and some of the other members have changed. But
wait a minute, Britney Fox is back. I thought Johnny D was with Doro.
Well, he is with Doro, but they're doing the Britney Fox thing again, as far as I know.
Oh,
yes.
Man, that Doro, she was something else. She is something else.
I went to see Johnny play with her down at Dobbs.
Yeah.
And she was really, really sick.
Oh.
And you would never know when she hit the stage.
Okay.
She put on a great show. She crushed it. They were all great.
Yeah.
And then they had to drag her out. I mean, she was done.
Yeah.
She was really, really sick. But again, a total pro comes out and does what she needs to do.
Yeah.
And then probably collapsed backstage afterwards.
Yeah. How old would she be now?
I don't know, and I don't care.
All right. Anyway, back to you.
Do you really want to go back to me? I guess age is just a number anyway, so it's not very that important.
In this business, it does mean something. I mean, I was with this country artist, and when she was signed, they changed her age to be, it was upper 20s somewhere, and she was already in her early 30s.
Oh.
But then the press found out, and they're saying she is not, 28 or whatever it was they were saying, but it's important to a point. But like I tell students, I said, look, in this business, you can't be too young, too good looking, or have too much hair. Can't be done.
Well, I mean, there's I would think some musicians that still play out, and they're aged quite a bit, but they still sound outstanding.
Well,
they sound incredible. So.
Absolutely.
But I guess you have to establish yourself.
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah, talking about Def Leppard, I mean, I've seen Def Leppard a ton of times recently, and I still love going to see those guys play.
Yeah, and I hate to be so superficial, but then again, when I saw Blue Oyster Cult at the House of Blues in Atlantic City, it was like, not that they didn't sound good, but it's like they look like your dad up there playing.
Well, I mean, appearances. I used to see a guy was a client of mine when I worked at Medley Music, and he was maybe in his late teens at the time, and he would come to see me. I think every Friday night he would come and hang out at the store, and I remember it was so funny, and all these people would say like. All the drummers are in there saying what you need to be able to do to make it in the business. Oh, you got to be able to do this. You got to be able to do that. You got to be able to do this and that. And I said, nah. None of that means anything. And they said, what's important? I said, ask this guy. I said, he'll tell you. And he said, none of that means anything. He said, it's all about what you look like. I said, there you go.
Yeah. That's a big part of it.
Especially now. I mean, it's such a visual medium.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, let's face it. It's not the best players that are on top of this business.
No.
Not in most cases. There are some,
right?
But it's having the catchy tune. It's being able to get the big hooks. At least being able to have it sound half decent recording wise, and then putting it out there.
Well, I think I agree with that, or I've learned that because that's why I'm trying to be like a songwriter and composer because. I'm too old and out of shape now to be in front of the camera or the mic, and I never could really sing very well anyway.
That's funny. I thought you were Brad Pitt.
Thank you. But in all seriousness, folks, I forget. I lost my train of thought.
His mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out. Just so you know.
So trying to be a composer and songwriter because I can like do it behind the scenes. Be behind the scenes. Or also, there was something else I was going to say, and I totally forgot what it was. Something about how being young and looking good, and man, I totally blanked out on that. There was something else though. There was something.
Video killed the radio star.
All right, let's wrap this up.
We're going to wrap this up?
Yes.
Okay, this was an interview with Matt Torrance. It was supposed to be Ed Rick. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry, Ed.
I thought you were serious.
I think I was a little bit, but I don't want to hurt Matt's feelings. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Ed, I do. I definitely appreciate you.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you much for the invitation.
No, thank you for doing this. God, I feel like I could ask you more because Matt kind of monopolized most of it. I'm just kidding. I don't know what to ask though. I'm kidding.
And
Matt was a big
as if Matt does.
No, Matt, and you guys are both in the music. Me, I
Yes.
listen to it, but I'm not really familiar with how music
Gotcha.
works.
Mhm.
So I don't want to go back as Matt would say. I'd be stepping back, but I started asking you about what bands influence you. You did mention Beatles. Def Leppard, and I see Elvis up here.
Yeah, well,
King.
I play with an Elvis tribute.
Oh,
artist.
you do?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that would explain why.
Well, actually, girl from the front office bought me a bunch of Elvis stamps and tacked that up there. So.
Front office out here.
Well, I guess it's not important. Right? Matt asked if it was the front office
Yes.
in front of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let him give a plug for his business and how to find him online, and also that he deals drums. Talk about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Ed. Ed has his own. You have your own business.
Yes.
I should. Would you like to give a plug for yourself, or?
Okay. I mean, I own Ed Rick Drums. Go figure. And I have my own teaching studio and drum store. And, of course, I also perform quite a bit. And I am, as I said, I have a building in a very commercial district. Technically, it's considered Norristown, but it's really East Norriton. And I'm right next to a big Walmart shopping center with a bunch of other things.
Yeah, well, how would anybody get in contact with you? In other words, what's the email, what's the website, and how would they find you on social media and stuff like that?
Well, that's something I actually need to work on there, Matt. But the email address would be edrickdrums@gmail.com, and you could contact me about lessons, drums, anything at all, drum or music related, at edrickdrums@gmail.com.
Okay. So you've been doing this for.
You don't want to give your phone number out.
Do you want to give your phone number out or
Yeah,
no?
we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you could reach me at 610-505-4331, and that would come directly to me.
Okay, so there you go, folks. If you're interested in some drum lessons or something, some music lessons, Ed Rick would be the man to come to. If not,
or if you're interested in drums, I've got a few hundred sitting here, so got plenty of stock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, hey, you can even buy a set of drums.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good, too. So you got everything. People don't have to go out if they want to learn drums. They can buy the drums from you, and then you can teach them.
They can, yes.
That sounds like a good deal.
Yep, thanks, Walter.
Oh, yeah. No, Ed, thank you. Maybe I should call this
All right, now let me tell you something. Here's what I wanted to... No, I'm sorry.
That was Matt again. I apologize again, Ed.
That's okay.
Actually, we've been doing pretty well. We got up to almost an hour and a half.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I guess Matt asked you a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I didn't ask you the right questions. I wasn't sure. I apologize unless you have anything you want to add in to wrap it up with. Now we know how to contact you if we want to get lessons.
Yep.
Is there anything that you would want to say before we would wrap it up, like any interesting stories? I know Matt pulled a couple out of you.
Well, I'll tell two quick stories.
Hey, take your time.
One, I was in my teens, and this is kind of interesting, and I was playing a gig at King of Prussia Mall, which is even bigger now than it was then. And I got to play with Joe Frazier in the Knockouts. So it was pretty interesting. Former heavyweight champion of the world. And he couldn't sing a lick, but I wasn't going to tell him. And that was a pretty funny gig. And now Matt's rubbing off on me, so I'm blanking on the other one.
Oh, no. Don't say that.
Oh, yeah. I was playing World Yacht in New York City, and it was like this kind of a dinner-type cruise thing, and you'd go out and just cruise around, and we'd go around the Statue of Liberty and down all the way to the UN building and stuff, and it was pretty interesting, and, you know, it was before 9/11, so I remember it was really hard. I was trying to get good shots of the Twin Towers, and it's very hard when you're on a little boat that's rocking around on the river, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I remember I got one that came out really, really well. It was pretty cool. So it's still weird to me to go into New York and not see that. It's kind of disappointing, but you know, that's the way it is now. But I on World Yacht one time, and I'm sitting there, and Marvin Hamlish comes on. Marvin Hamlish with his bride to be.
Who was who?
I don't know who she was. Just a beautiful blonde, and he was going to have his wedding reception on the boat. They had 4 boats, and it was funny. We were docked right across from Malcolm Forbes' senior's yacht, which was impressive as heck, and it was white and green, and it had gold trim that was actual gold.
That's incredible.
And he had a Donzi speed boat on it and a helicopter. And we became friends with the captain, who said he was going to take us for a tour of it, and it never happened. But back to Marvin Hamlish, he comes on the boat, and he's going through all the stuff with the crew there and setting everything up for his wedding reception. And he comes back and sits down at the piano, and I was sitting there, and he goes, "Come on, drummer." He goes, "Let's go." And so I was jamming with Marvin Hamlish.
Wow. How would you best describe Marvin Hamlish? Would he be a songwriter? And what else? Did he write any show tunes? What was his biggest thing? I kind of know who he is, but not 100%.
Jeez, he wrote like tons of movie scores and stuff.
Movie score. So
yeah.
movie scores would be
big
the
time. Yeah.
Okay, I thought he was more of like a theater stage guy.
I think probably both, but I think, you know, movies would probably be his biggest thing. Yeah, most well known for that. And he's a heck of a piano player, obviously. I mean, he's tremendous on piano.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that sounds... Well, I want to sound like I always say, but that sounds really cool, Ed. Actually, that's why I had to say that.
It was just.
I actually looked
funny
up,
things that people wouldn't expect you to be doing.
It is actually. I actually looked up Joe Frazier at least.
Yeah.
The Knockouts, because I remember you mentioned that.
Yep.
So
there you go.
I
played with Joe Frazier in the Knockouts.
That is actually awesome.
It's pretty funny. No, he's passed away quite a while ago. You know, look up Muhammad Ali. There you go, and then you'll find Joe Frazier.
Oh,
I was waiting in line at an ATM when I went to Temple U, and he walked by, and that's pretty much all I got.
There you go.
So you do have some cool stories. I want to make sure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But Ed, do you want to say anything else, or
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm good.
Alrighty, folks. Well, this was Ed Rick. Again, he's a music teacher and a musician. He's a drummer. We've had him on for the last little over an hour and a half.
Music teacher, musician, and just all-around swell guy. A great human being.
Unlike Matt. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry about that, Matt. I have to put a little dig. No. Both guys are great music teachers, and Ed Rick is a great musician. No, I'm just kidding. They're both very good musicians, but
I'm stuck.
Matt's not going to say anything. He started saying something, but then
You can't hear me? I said I'm competent. Can you guys hear?
Yes.
What I'm saying?
When the mic's close to you, I can hear
The
you.
mic.
Only when
Yes.
the mic's closed.
It'll
Well, I
be
can hear you
faint.
directly,
It'll be
yes.
faint. Yeah,
Yes.
when he's far away. But Ed, this was really. I'm speechless, but I really do appreciate you doing a podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh yeah, so I got a little bit of everybody now. I've interviewed Matt more than once. I've
Right.
interviewed a guy named
Tommy Conwell.
Tommy Conwell.
Household name.
Household name. That was just on my phone. It wasn't like as good as this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Roberto Casada.
Visual consultant and cinematographer on Phantasm, directed by Don Coscarelli.
Gotta love that.
Yeah. So now I got like a.
The triumvirate.
Yes. So I thank you so much for that, folks.
Yeah. We're not trying to do math here, Matt.
No, I'm horrible at math. Like everything, I'm bad at everything.
If he can't sign off, he doesn't know what to ask. But when it's time to go, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Did it? This is,
Well, I can take care of that.
Okay.
Okay. This is Ed Rick from Ed Rick Drums, and it was my pleasure to be here with Walter and Matt on the iwalter podcast.